Hey guys, this is Adam, otherwise known as Based Bread, and today I am bringing you my Hashaton Scarab's Fist cEDH deck tech. I wanted to get this video out there because there was a lot of requests for a deck tech to kind of explain what is going on through my brain and what the madness is all about. First, let's go into Hashaton. Hashaton is a legendary creature, a zombie wizard, that whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 colorless and a blue. If you do, you create a tapped token copy of that creature, except it is instead just a 4/4 black zombie, but it does retain the creature card's ability text. So if I were to discard a Archivist of Agma, I would be able to pay 2 generic and a blue and create a black 4/4 zombie creature token copy of it. And it would retain all of its ability to draw a card off of someone searching their library. This commander, I believe, is going to be close to tier 1. It might butt up against the edge, probably like top 5, for sure top 10 decks in cEDH, and I really wanted to get out in front of this and kind of set the scene for what Hashaton is all about. Included, I have a full primer. It is quite extensive, and it'll go over a lot of the things that I do not talk about in this deck tech. So back to my deck. I have a pretty big creature package, and that makes sense because we are trying to get creatures discarded. And I'm first going to go through the card advantage creatures. That's anything that is either drawing a card, tutoring, or providing some form of spell casting value. So with that, we have Archivist of Agma, Consecrated Sphinx, Esper Sentinel, Ghostly Pilferer, because it does technically draw cards, and dual purpose is a discard outlet. We also have Jin Gitaxias as one of our big boys that we can drop into play via Hashaton's ability. Similarly to Ghostly Pilfer, we have a discard outlet on Kitsa that also provides incremental card draw and has the bonus that it can copy a instant or sorcery spell if we have its power greater than 3. Ledger Shredder serves as card draw and discard, which is perfect for our plan. Nezahal is another one of our big payoffs. We then have Polywog Prodigy, which, if you discard it via Hashaton, is now a 4/4 zombie token copy. So you're going to draw on every 3 CMC spell. Well, non-creature spell, that is. But still, this is basically a mini Nezahal for 3 mana. Additionally, we have Psychic Frog, which is another Ghostly Pilferer type effect where we can draw cards and we can discard any creature we want. Razaketh is a card advantage engine, specifically tutoring. We have Tivit, which is an occasional clue draw engine plus mana value. And we have Valgavoth, which serves as a card advantage engine plus also shutting off graveyards. Outside of our draw creatures, we have value creatures such as Astral Dragon. This is probably one of my favorite includes in the deck. When you discard this via Hashaton, you're going to create 10 power on board. You're going to create 2 3/3 dragon creatures that can enter as any non-creature permanent in play. So let's say your opponents drop a turn 2 Rhystic. If you were to turn 3 discard this to Hashaton, you could now have 2 Rhystic Studies that are 3/3 flying dragons on your board. In itself, Astral Dragon is also then a 4/4 black flying zombie creature token. We also have Grand Abolisher, which is our silence value. We have High Fae Trickster, which is going to allow us to do anything we want at flash speed. I specifically included High Fae, even though it's a higher CMC cost than Valley Floodcaller, because I do really like being able to cast creatures at flash speed. Plus, if we discard it to Hashaton, it's going to cost the same as Valley Floodcaller anyways. Next, we have Leveler. Leveler has some very condensed win con lines with Thassa's Oracle. If you have 6 mana, a discard outlet, and both Thassa's and Leveler in hand, you have a fully win the game combo that requires no casting. It's very difficult to interact with once you get all the pieces in play. We have Lotho. Lotho is a very good mana resource engine. Going to give you a lot of treasures over the course of the game. Mockingbird is a fetchable 1 CMC creature off of Ranger Captain. It is a good tutor for our opponent's Orcish Bowmasters, Esper Sentinels, any other value 1 or 2 drops really fit its niche. We have Phyrexian Metamorph to go get more good creatures. Notably, if we get like a Polywog in play on our end, we can use our own Metamorph to have a second Polywog that's a 4/4. We can use this to go get other people's draw commanders. It's just a very good resource, and it also notably hits the One Ring. We then have, as mentioned before, Ranger Captain, useful to go get our 1 CMC effects such as Esper Sentinel, Mockingbird, our discard outlet of Tireless Tribe. And then we have Sharoom, which is a win line, and I'll dive into that line a little bit later when I get to what it combos with. And then everyone knows Thassa's Oracle. So that is a brief run through of my 25 creatures, and I ultimately do not think I will be messing around too much with this creature package. It has been feeling very consistent to me. Next up is our sorcery package. Only 5 sorceries. All of them are extremely straightforward. Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Praetor's Grasp, Reanimate, Yawgmoth's Will. Out of all of these, Yawgmoth's Will is probably the most likely where other people might find variance in the list. I like to include Yawgmoths because it makes Razaketh lines extremely easy. It also is a deck that we are churning through cards and putting cards into our graveyard. So having that extra source of recursion is very nice. If we drop an early game LED to put in one of our big engines, Yawgmoths is a way that we can get LED back. I just like its viability and its usefulness and recursion of our non-creature pieces. Then we have our instant package, which is the same exact amount as our creature package. So half of our deck is creatures and instants. The first instant we're going to look at in here is Angel's Grace, because I know a lot of people dislike this card, have strong feelings about Angel's Grace. Specifically to this deck, there is a very small niche line. It is a split second line where you are able to win with a split second spell on the stack. And I'm going to go right into this because a lot of people have been talking about this, and a lot of people have said it's not good enough to include, and I think it's good enough to include one instance of it, but nothing more than that. So let's just go through this. When you have Hashaton in play, and you have the availability to discard Thassa's Oracle and Leveler as a mana ability. So as a mana ability means using LED, Diamond Lion, Overeager Apprentice, something that we can discard that can be layered on top of Split Second. And there are only like 2 or 3 things in all of Magic that can be layered on top of Split Second. I think the other one is Morph, and there is one more, but I'm not really sure. For what we're looking at only mana abilities. For my deck, I'm running only Lion's Eye Diamond for this combo because at the end of the day, this combo is pretty difficult to set up. What this requires is we have LED in play, we have Thassa's Oracle in hand, we have Leveler in hand, and we have Angel's Grace in hand. And then all we need is an additional 3 mana in play outside of our LED. What you can do is you can cast Angel's Grace, and holding priority with Split Second on the stack, you're able to activate LED as a mana ability to discard Thassa's Oracle and Leveler. You can then utilize your 3 floating blue mana from LED and your 3 additional mana to order the Hashaton triggers so that your Leveler comes into play, exiles your library, and then your Thassa's Oracle comes into play, and wins the game off an empty library. All of this is done with Angel's Grace still on the stack, Split Second still in play, so our opponents cannot do anything other than activate their mana abilities or maybe do like a weird morph thing. But let's be real, no one's running morph. So that's the niche. Is it a good line? Yes, because mid-range hell, it's honestly not unreasonable to draw all 4 of those pieces and have 6 mana, especially in games where you get multiple Ristic Studies in play, multiple draw engines. Am I going to use it to win many games? Probably not, but I think it is relevant enough to have Angel's Grace in the list. Whew, okay. Now that that is done, I don't want to talk anymore about split second lines because we're not focusing on that in this deck. We have a very big counter package. I'm running an offer you can't refuse, delay, fierce guardianship, flusterstorm, force of negation, force of will, mental misstep, mindbreak trap, misdirection, pact of negation, sink into stupor, spell pierce, and swan song. This is probably more counterspells than a lot of people run. I just very much enjoy having access to interaction. I am not a player that likes to be jamming without protection, and so this number of counterspells fits my needs. I'm also running a decent amount of removal with Deadly Rollick. What else we got? Into the Floodmaw. Sink into Stupor also serves as a 2-piece counterspell / bounce, and then Swords to Plowshares. I substituted Swords to Plowshares recently. I used to have Chain of Vapor, but Chain of Vapor felt pretty bad when we really want our creatures in play at all times, and people will sack their lands to get rid of our tokens, which unfortunately don't even go back to hand. When they bounce our token, it just ceases to exist. Other than that, other instants we are running are ritual effects. We have Dark Ritual. We have our instant speed tutors, Demonic Consultation, Enlightened Tutor, Entomb. Entomb Reanimate is one of my favorite combos. Any deck that has black should be running Entomb Reanimate, especially when we can Entomb Reanimate a Jin Kataxis turn 1. I'm also running Mystical Tutor. We're also running Vampiric Tutor and then Tainted Pact. Outside of this, we have additional utility instants such as Silence. I think that is the last instant. We then have a pretty generic artifact package. We're running the Moxes, notably not Mox Opal or Mox Amber, even though Hashaton is a 2 CMC commander, and a lot of people think, oh, 2 CMC commander, that's an easy include for Mox Amber. I am notably not playing Necropotence in this list, and at the end of the day, Mox Amber with Hashaton in play doesn't tap for blue mana, so I really just don't think it's that worth including without Necropotence. Same thing for Mox Opal, it's usually a dead card. If you're not on Necropotence, I do not suggest playing Mox Opal. But other than that, we do have Chrome Mox, Mox Diamond, Sol Ring, 2 rocks, Arcane Signet, Talisman. I lied, 3. We have Felwar Stone also. Then we have our colorless producers of Mana Vault, Grim Monolith. These are mainly to be curving on par with our One Ring and Smothering Tides. We have LED as a utility piece for discarding. It is great early game. It can get us into some really big creatures out super early. We have Lotus Petal, similarly good for turn 1, turn 2 plays. And then our other artifacts that aren't mana are the One Ring and Wishclaw Talisman. Next, we have our enchantment package. So I am running 6 enchantments. Mystic, Aneristic, and Smothering Tithe are no-brainers. Any deck in these colors should be running these. Then we have 3 that are more preference picks. Tiny Bones Joins Up is a combo piece with Sharoom. So Sharoom is this big dumb artifact sphinx that when it enters, you get to return a artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And Tiny Bones Joins Up says whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield, you get to, or each opponent loses 1 life and mills a card. There's a fun and very compact combo when you discard Sharoom and recur it with Hashaton. You create a legendary 4/4 copy of Sharoom. That copy then has a ETB trigger, returns the original Sharoom from the graveyard into play. You are then presented with a legendary rule that needs to resolve before the new trigger of Sharoom targeting something in your graveyard happens. Legendary rule happens, you kill this Sharoom, send it back to your graveyard, and its trigger then recurs it. So you create this kind of like infinite loop of this Sharoom dying to legend rule and then recurring itself, and you repeat. And with Tiny Bones Jones Up in play, you would then do infinite damage, infinite mill to each opponent. Notably, this is targeted damage. So One Ring stops this from killing someone if they have One Ring protection. Meat Hook Massacre is similarly another effect that when we have infinite Shrooms coming into play, we are going to cause infinite loss of life. And this one isn't avoidable, so One Ring does not stop this one. We then have Animate Dead as just a backup recursion piece. This Tiny Bones joins up line, although Shroom sometimes feels pretty dead in hand, this entire line can be done without providing any onboard information. So you could go into a turn with no commander in play. All you have is 3 lands and a mana vault, and then you could cast your commander, cast Tiny Bones joins up, pitching Shroom, and then you have now just assembled an infinite line from 6 mana and no one expecting it. I think for that reason alone, it is very much so worth an include in this list. Next, we have our lands. We have 26 lands, one of those being Bazaar of Baghdad, one of those being a MDFC. So really we're running, it says 27. We're running 26 lands that actually produce mana. So Ancient Tomb, our fetch Arid, Bazaar of Baghdad, which is a really good draw engine. Honestly, if you have a hand that is 2 lands and a Bazaar of Baghdad, you can each turn get 3 looks at hitting a creature and discarding it to then recur it. It's a very good way to get greedy on your mulls, go down to a mull of 3 or 4. It allows you to rebuild pretty safely because unless they kill Hashaton, it's really not super interactable. City of Brass, Command Tower, Minimo for untapping the One Ring, Flooded Strand, Godless Shrine, Hallowed Fountain, Mana Confluence, Marshlands, Misty Rainforest, Morphic Pool. Odawara provides us some more spot removal interaction that gets around Grand Abolisher effects. We have more of our fetches in Polluted and Scalding Tarn, Scrubland, Sea of Clouds, Tundra, Underground Sea, Urza's Saga, which notably can go get us LED or Soul Ring, Vault of Champions, Verdant Catacombs, Watergrave, Windswept Heath. This is a very standard land package. I'm not doing anything crazy here, but it has been working with this amount of lands. I haven't really had any mana issues on this deck. These are my notable sideboard options. I recently cut these because they just felt a little clunky. A lot of people have been slotting in Time Sieve because it combos with Tivit. I personally don't really like the Tivit Time Sieve combo. I think Time Sieve is generally just a dead card in hand, so I don't really want to play it. Hullbreaker, although you have some benefits of running it, like you can flicker or bounce infinite rocks, Bowmasters to ping the table, it's just too clunky. It doesn't provide enough value by itself for me to want to include it. Diamond Lion was like a backup LED, but it often just felt a little too slow and way too predictable once I'm dropping that Diamond Lion in play. And then Diabolic Intent I cut because I really don't like sacrificing any of my creatures, because all of my creatures serve a purpose. That is the short course deep dive into Hashaton Scarab's Fist. I'm going to quick go over a couple things in my primer. So let's just look at some of these combos. So the basic combos of this deck that we're closing out games are Thassa's Demonic, Leveler Thassa's, and then having Entomb, Reanimate, or Animate Dead to get a very early massive payoff creature into play, or having Entomb, Reanimate, Tainted Pact as a all-black way to do the Thassa's Oracle combo. Additionally, we have our LED lines that I talked about, so we can easily get into play 2 lands and an LED and a payoff creature. So if our turn 1 is land LED and our turn 2 is land Hashaton and we have a payoff in hand, that's just turn 2. We might have a 10 drop in play. It's not a game ending combo per se, but it likely will end the game eventually. We also have similarly the non-LED discard lines. If we get a good starting hand, Soul Ring, land, discard outlet. Any payoff is also still just turn 2, turn 3 massive creature. Once again, if that sticks, that's going to probably end the game in your favor. We then have our Razaketh lines. These Razaketh lines are convoluted. There are many ways you can win via Razaketh. The easiest is Razaketh and one other creature. you can sack the other creature to go get Thassa's Oracle, and then cast Thassa's Oracle. Thassa's Oracle on the stack with the ETB trigger. You sacrifice Thassa's to go get Demonic, and then you cast Demonic. And that is a line that just requires 2 blue and a black. You have a lot of convoluted Razaketh lines that involve different amounts of creatures. I've given some example lines where you have 3 creatures, no discard effects, no mana, and a certain amount of life. Similarly, there's one if you have 1 creature and a non-creature discard effect, for example, LED or Tiny Bones. These are not extensive. There are an infinite different amount of combinations that you could do. I just put these in here as inspiration. We then have our Shroom line, which I discussed as another game-ending combo. We then have these other combos that I wanted to include in case people want to have a variant list of my own. A lot of people have been running Abdel Adrian and the Necromancy to loop with Orcish Bowmasters or create 1/1s and then just go to combat. Like I said, a lot of people like Tivit Timesieve. Chains of Mess is a really good card with Jin, because it pretty much just locks the game. Same with Chains and Valgavoth. Hoarding Broodlord, Saw and Half combos. A lot of people are running that. I think this is a trap. I don't think you want to be running Hoarding Broodlord. It eats up too many slots. You're going to get dead cards. The tokens notably come in tapped when you activate Hashaton, so you're not going to be able to utilize Hoarding Broodlord to convoke. It just feels good at first glance, but bad in reality. Similarly, I think Teferi Displacer seems good at first glance, bad at reality. Outside of that, I would like to go into just a little bit of the individual card discussion of why I specifically chose big creatures that I did. So Valgavoth is extremely obnoxious. It is hard to remove. It has a ward cost of sacrificing 3 non-land permanents. If someone is removing this, that means they either have already been in a position where they have enough permanents that they do not care to remove and they're probably winning, or they have nothing better to do other than sabotage your board state. So if this sticks, it is probably going to stick there until the game ends. It allows us to cast on our turn for paying life instead of mana any spell that has hit the graveyard from any of our opponents. It is an insane engine if people feed into it. We have our massive draw engines, which are Jin-Gitaxias, Consecrated Sphinx, Nezahal, and Polywog. Jin-Gitaxias is by far the most explosive draw engine. If we can get this turn 1 or 2, it is going to set us up to win. It is going to be very difficult for people to deal with having no hand size at the end of their turn. It is probably the most greedy of the draw engines, but I think it is well worth an include. The rest of these are very good, just incremental draw engines. I'm also running Tivit specifically because we want some form of mana engine, and Tivit, when it enters, if you paid 3 to make a copy of it, you can just choose 2 treasures, and you essentially refund its entire cost. And now you're getting only excess gains on your future turns. Razaketh is not a draw engine, but it works very well as a game closer. And then, like I said, Astral Dragon allows us to copy any good value permanent that's not a creature on the board. Whether that's a Smothering Tithe, whether we just need some more ramp for our next turn, we put in 2 Arcane Signets, 2 Soul Rings. We could get lucky and have 2 Rhystic Studies, which is just game ending in itself. There's really no scenario where I think Astral Dragon will be bad. Then we have Shroom, which is a win-con creature. It doesn't provide much value by itself, but its win line is so compact that I really do think it's worth an include. We have LED as our sole split-second mana ability discarder. Some notable mentions are Overeager Apprentice and Diamond Lion if you want to kind of tailor your deck to be more split-second. We also have the 4 discard effects that I'm running of Tireless Tribe, Psychic Frog, Ghostly Pilferer, and Bazaar of Baghdad. Notable mention is Putrid Imp. I cut Putrid Imp, replaced it with Tireless Tribe because Tireless can provide itself a +4 buff in case of Orcish Bowmasters trying to ping it. Then we have 2 other pseudo discarders, which are looters. We have Ledger Shredder and Kitsa. And we have our backup plan if our win gets stopped and Thassa's gets binned or exiled. We have Praetor's Grasp, Reanimate, Dogma's Will, and Animate Dead. I think that is all I will be going into today, so thank you for sticking around and listening to my rant about Hashaton Scarab's Fist. I think this guy is going to 100% break cEDH. I think this is going to see a lot of wins really quickly, and there are going to be a lot of cool brews, and I'm just very excited to show you mine. Thanks.